The Kethrin training grounds had fallen silent for the third consecutive day, an unprecedented occurrence that sent ripples of concern through the Galactic Defense Council. Commander Zexhai stood at the observation deck, his 4 eyes fixed on the scene below where dozens of young Kethrin warriors, cubs barely past their naming ceremonies, sat in perfect stillness, their crystalline fur dulled with defiance. "They refuse all instruction," reported Subcommander Veltos, her voice carrying the strain of frustrated authority. "Combat drills, tactical simulations, even basic conditioning exercises. They simply sit." Zexhai's mandibles clicked in agitation. The Kethrins were the galaxy's premier warriors, bred for millennia to serve as the backbone of interstellar defense. Their cubs typically began training before they could properly walk, their natural aggression channeled into disciplined lethality. This rebellion was not merely unusual, it was impossible. "And the human?" Zexhai asked, though he already knew the answer. "Still refuses to leave her quarters, claims she has no authority over military matters." Dr. Liana Chen had arrived on the station 3 weeks ago as part of a cultural exchange program, supposedly to study Kethrin's social dynamics. A xenoanthropologist from Earth, she had been granted limited access to observe training sessions. What she had observed, however, had apparently triggered something unprecedented in Kethrin history. In the Cubs' dormitory, Daniel Kratos, Liana's research assistant and the only other human aboard the station, sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by young Kethrins. Unlike the training grounds, here the Cubs were animated, chattering, in their native clicks and growls while Daniel attempted to follow their rapid conversations. "They keep asking about the soft voice," Daniel explained to Liana as she entered. "That's what they call you. They want to know when you'll speak to them again." Liana ran her hands through her dark hair, exhaustion evident in every line of her posture. "Daniel, I told them one story. One, about Earth children playing games instead of training for war. How was I supposed to know it would cause this?" "Because you're human," came a deep rumbling voice from the doorway. Alpha Torhak filled the entrance, his massive frame casting shadows across the room. Unlike the other Kethrins aboard the station, the Alpha showed no hostility toward the Yair humans. His ancient eyes held something that might have been respect or perhaps curiosity. "Alpha," Liana began, rising to her feet. "I never meant to undermine." "You did not undermine," Torhak interrupted, his accented standard perfect despite the alien vocal cords. "You awakened." The Alpha moved into the room with surprising grace for his size, the Cubs immediately falling silent and arranging themselves in respectful formation. But their eyes remained fixed on Liana. "For 3,000 cycles, we have trained our young, as we were trained," Torhak continued. "Strength through pain, unity through competition, victory through domination. It was the way. It was efficient." He paused, his gaze moving between the humans and the Cubs. "It was all we knew." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Alpha, we didn't come here to change anything. We're just observers." "You told them children could learn through joy," Torhak said to Liana. "That strength could come from curiosity instead of fear. That warriors could be forged through understanding rather than breaking." His mandibles curved in what might have been a smile. "Revolutionary concepts for a species that has known only the fist." Liana felt the weight of dozens of young eyes upon her. The Cubs, some barely larger than human toddlers, others approaching adolescence, waited with an intensity that made her heart race. "I don't know how to train warriors," she admitted quietly. "No," Torhak agreed. "But you know how to raise children, and perhaps we have forgotten the difference." Over the following days, something extraordinary began to take shape on the Kethrin station. Under Liana's gentle guidance and Daniel's enthusiastic participation, the Cubs began a new kind of training. They still learned combat techniques, but now they understood the why behind each movement. They still pushed their bodies to their limits but celebrated each other's progress rather than competing for dominance. Most remarkably, they began to ask questions. Why do we fight? a small cub named Kixra asked during one session, her silver fur shimmering with curiosity. To protect, Liana replied simply. To ensure that others can live in peace. But what if the enemy also believes they are protecting? Another asked. The questions grew more complex, more nuanced. The cubs began to understand strategy not just as a tool for victory, but as a means of avoiding unnecessary conflict. They learned that true strength sometimes meant choosing not to fight at all. Commander Zexhai watched from his observation post, his initial skepticism gradually giving way to amazement. The cubs' physical performance had not diminished. If anything, their newfound enthusiasm had enhanced their natural abilities. But, more importantly, they were developing something the Kethrin military had never possessed, the ability to think beyond their programming. The Council will not approve, Sub-Commander Veltos warned during one of their daily briefings. The Council, Zexhai replied slowly, may not have a choice. 6 months later, when the first class of cubs trained under Liana's influence graduated to junior warrior status, their performance evaluations broke every record in Kethrin military history. Not because they were stronger or faster than their predecessors, but because they were smarter, more adaptable, more capable of independent thought. The revolution had begun with a simple story about human children at play. It would end with the transformation of the galaxy's most feared warriors into something far more dangerous. Warriors who understood not just how to fight, but when not to. As Liana prepared to return to Earth, Alpha Torhak approached her one final time. The cubs call you Mother of Question, he said. It is a title of highest honor among our people. Liana smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. They were always meant to ask questions, Alpha. They just needed someone to tell them it was okay. Behind them, the sounds of young voices, Human and Kethrin together, drifted from the training grounds where Daniel continued the work they had started. The cubs had refused to train until the Human spoke. Now, they would never stop learning.